Most people believe love is a choice, a conscious act of selecting someone based on compatibility, shared values, attraction, or timing. But Owen Hermstring challenges this illusion in his book, The Law Behind the Laws. He writes that we're rarely operating from true free will when it comes to love. Instead, we're guided by what he calls the silent compass of pain. It's not our clarity that's in charge, it's our emotional scars. Without realizing it, we're drawn to what feels familiar, even if what feels familiar is what once broke us. This is why some people seem to fall into the same toxic pattern again and again. They date different people with the same emotional blueprint. A new face, a new name, but the same emotional absence, manipulation, or coldness. And each time they tell themselves this one is different. But Hermstring explains, you can't heal what you keep repeating. The wound must be seen before it stops choosing for you. In this view, the heart doesn't operate in a vacuum. It responds to unconscious imprints created during our formative experiences, primarily from childhood. If you grew up with a parent who withheld affection, you may find yourself inexplicably drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable. You don't recognize it at first. They may even appear attentive or charismatic, but eventually the emotional unavailability rises to the surface and you're caught in the same emotional loop. Why? Because your nervous system is more familiar with yearning than receiving. You don't crave love as much as you crave the pursuit of it, and that pursuit becomes a substitute for connection. Hermstring likens this to tuning a radio. If your emotional frequency is tuned to abandonment, you won't hear the stations of real intimacy. You'll only hear static when something healthy shows up. It's not that healthy love doesn't exist or isn't available. It's that when it arrives, you don't recognize it. Or worse, it bores you, because there's no pain to chase, no drama to decode, no old script to reenact. This is where the real revelation begins. Your attraction isn't random. It's patterned, and until you reprogram the wound, it will continue to be the author of your love story. Hermstring calls these hidden scripts emotional codes, and they operate like software running in the background of your romantic life. The code says, you must chase love to prove you're worthy. Or, if they don't hurt you, it must not be real. These aren't conscious beliefs, but subconscious drivers, and until they are identified and rewritten, they remain in control. What makes this more complex is the chemistry we feel with people who match our old wounds. Hermstring warns, chemistry is not always compatibility. Sometimes it's trauma recognition. You feel magnetically drawn to someone, not because they're a soulmate, but because your inner child recognizes a familiar pain. This is what makes it so hard to break the cycle. The wound disguises itself as love. So how do you interrupt the pattern? Hermstring's first recommendation is awareness without judgment. You must become the observer of your own relational history. Look at your past partners. What traits repeat? How did they make you feel? What did you tolerate? What did you chase? What felt missing? When you examine these patterns honestly, you begin to see the architecture of your wound. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must also create a new emotional identity, one that isn't addicted to pain, pursuit, or dysfunction. Hermstring writes, you will attract what your nervous system is calibrated to receive. If you want real love, you must teach your body that safety is not boring. That consistency is not a threat. This means doing the deep, sometimes uncomfortable work of healing, therapy, journaling, inner child work, forgiveness, and learning to receive love without fear. This topic closes with one of Hermstring's most powerful metaphors. You think you're falling in love, but often you're just falling back into the arms of your wound, dressed in new clothes. Love becomes liberation only when it's chosen from a healed place, not a reflex of trauma. So before you ask, why do I keep ending up with the wrong people? Ask instead, which wound keeps choosing for me? When you find the answer, you reclaim the pen that's been writing your story in invisible ink. It's a strange thought, isn't it? That before you ever swipe right, feel butterflies, or hear the tone of someone's voice, a part of you, buried deep inside, has already made the choice. This isn't the conscious you that reads books, makes vision boards, or meditates. This is the subconscious you that was formed in the earliest moments of pain, rejection, abandonment, or shame. And it's this part of you, the part that Owen Hermstring calls the script of the wound in The Law Behind the Laws, that becomes the true matchmaker of your life. According to Hermstring, every relationship we enter into is a mirror, but that mirror doesn't just reflect our present self, it echoes our unhealed past. He writes, "We are drawn to those who will help us reenact the feeling our soul got stuck in, not because we want pain again, but because on some broken level, we think it will finally set us free." Imagine a woman who grew up with a father who was emotionally absent, always working, never present, offering provision but never affection. Consciously, she says she wants a kind, available, emotionally intelligent partner. But who does she fall for? The brooding artist, the emotionally unavailable executive, the partner who mirrors the original wound. Why? Because her nervous system doesn't crave safety. It craves what it recognizes, and what it recognizes is neglect, dressed up as passion, intensity, or challenge. Hermstring emphasizes this through what he calls the familiarity loop. In his words, familiarity isn't comfort, it's repetition. And repetition isn't healing, it's compulsion. The person becomes addicted to chasing the parent they could never please, or recreating the moment they felt abandoned, in hopes of rewriting it with a different ending. But the problem is, most never rewrite it. They simply relive it. Think about the patterns in your life. Are your relationships eerily similar? Do they start with fireworks and end in silence? Do you find yourself repeatedly being the giver, the fixer, the one who loves harder, only to feel emptied and invisible? That's not coincidence. That's programming. In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring warns us that we can't choose differently until we heal the internal chooser. That means reprogramming the part of us that equates unpredictability with passion, or caretaking with love, or sacrifice with worth. Until you change what love means to your inner child, he writes, you'll keep choosing pain, thinking it's love wearing new clothes. But here's the trap. These wounded dynamics don't always look dysfunctional at first. In fact, they often feel intoxicating. There's a magnetic pull, an unexplainable chemistry. That's the red flag. Because true love often feels calm, stable, even slow. But to the unhealed heart, calm feels boring and stability feels threatening. So we chase what activates us, not what nurtures us. There's a poignant passage in Hermstring's book where he describes a man who kept falling in love with women who needed saving. Each time he'd pour himself into their problems, trying to prove he was good enough to stay. But deep down, he wasn't choosing them. He was choosing his old wound. As Hermstring says, he wasn't loving them. He was trying to redeem himself in their eyes for what he never got from his mother's. This is the emotional loop we fall into, not because we're broken, but because we were wired that way early on. We didn't learn to love ourselves, so we outsourced that job to others, hoping this time someone will finally give us what we needed decades ago. But healing begins when you become aware of the pattern. When you stop blaming fate, your exes, or bad luck, and instead ask the deeper question, what part of me believes this is all I deserve? The wound isn't the enemy, it's the compass, pointing to the place where healing must begin. And until that healing happens, your subconscious will keep handing the keys to your past, not your future. So how do we change this? In the next topic, we'll explore exactly that. The process of interrupting the subconscious pattern, retraining the nervous system, and aligning your emotional compass with what is truly healthy, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because love doesn't have to hurt. It only does when you let your wound be the one who chooses. When someone enters your life and immediately feels different, electric, or meant to be, it's tempting to call it destiny or soul connection. But what if that rush of energy, that instant bond, isn't magic at all? What if it's just old wiring, your nervous system recognizing a pattern it's played before? In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen Hermstring challenges one of the most romanticized ideas in love, that chemistry means compatibility. According to him, what you often call chemistry is simply your wound vibrating in recognition. He puts it bluntly. The butterflies aren't a sign you've found the one, they're often the warning that your trauma just made a match. Let that settle. Your body remembers more than your mind does. When you were a child, you didn't just watch the way your caregivers loved, you absorbed it. If love was chaotic, inconsistent, or required you to earn it, that became your template. And so years later, when someone shows up with those same emotional patterns, your body reacts with familiarity. You feel drawn, activated, alive. But it's not healthy love, it's repetition. This is the foundation of what Hermstring refers to as the loop of energetic attraction. He explains that your subconscious is constantly scanning for energetic frequencies that match unresolved emotions. So if you've never healed your feelings of abandonment, you'll be drawn to people who, consciously or not, abandon. If you've internalized the belief that you must prove your worth to be loved, you'll find yourself attracted to emotionally distant partners who require constant effort. And because this feels so familiar, so deeply ingrained, you mistake the intensity for intimacy. Take the example of Sarah, a woman Hermstring mentions briefly in the book. She grew up with a father who was loving but always busy, always just out of reach. Her love was met with maybe later, and so she learned to equate waiting with affection. As an adult, she consistently fell for men who were inconsistent, calling sporadically, showing affection only when she pulled away, making her feel like she had to earn their love. To her, this was passion. In reality, it was programming. Hermstring writes, "You'll keep finding your pain in other people until you realize it's not them you're chasing. It's the feeling you never resolved." This is a wake-up call, because we spend so much time analyzing the people we're attracted to, thinking it's about them, their charm, their mystery, their vibe. But the truth is, your wound is the one doing the choosing. And unless you interrupt that cycle, no amount of self-talk, dating apps, or vision boards will change the outcome. So what do you do? The first step, as Hermstring outlines, is to observe without judging. When you feel sparked by someone, ask yourself, what does this feeling actually remind me of? Is it excitement, or is it anxiety dressed as excitement? Is it anticipation, or the thrill of trying to earn love again? The second step is emotional neutrality. Hermstring suggests practicing detachment when meeting new people, not to become cold or cynical, but to give yourself space to assess with clarity, not chemistry. He writes, "Before giving your heart, sit with your nervous system. If it feels chaotic, you're repeating. If it feels calm, you're rebuilding." This rewiring of attraction is uncomfortable, because healing often means choosing people who don't spike your adrenaline. It means learning to find beauty in consistency, safety in presence, romance in emotional availability. And for someone whose template was forged in chaos, that feels boring. But boring is often peace disguised. Hermstring warns us that unless we reprogram our emotional compass, we'll keep calling instability passion, and we'll label healthy love as too much or not enough. That's why he encourages emotional rewiring, not just affirmations or wishful thinking. You have to change how love feels in your body, not just how it looks on paper. He even suggests a powerful exercise. Write down your last 3 significant romantic partners. Then, under each, list how they made you feel, especially the negative patterns. Once you're done, circle the emotions that repeat. Those emotions aren't random, they're your chemistry profile. And until that profile changes, the casting won't either. So, next time you feel that rush, pause. Don't run from it, but don't surrender to it blindly either. Ask, is this person actually right for me? Or do they just feel familiar to my old pain? Because true love doesn't leave you anxious, confused, or overthinking. It makes room. It softens. It helps you breathe. And if you're not used to breathing in love, you'll need to practice until your body stops craving the high of chaos and starts recognizing the quiet power of peace. As Hermstring writes in one of the most quoted passages of the book, "You've mistaken emotional activation for emotional connection. Learn the difference, or the past will keep seducing you in new disguises." It's one of the most uncomfortable truths Owen Hermstring presents in The Law Behind the Laws, that the type of love you pursue, or suffer for, often isn't about the person in front of you. It's about someone behind you, someone you desperately wanted approval from, someone you couldn't reach. Often the love that breaks you is a reenactment of the love you never received. Hermstring writes, "You think you're dating a partner, but you're often redating a parent, hoping the ending will change." This is the silent blueprint most people carry. As children, we are born with the biological need to attach, not just to be loved, but to be approved of, seen, chosen. When that doesn't happen consistently or at all, the child doesn't stop loving the parent. The child stops loving themselves. That inner wound says, "I must not be enough," and then it spends the rest of its life trying to prove otherwise, by choosing partners who replicate that original emotional dynamic. Let's say your father was emotionally distant. You could never predict his mood, never get his full attention. That becomes your emotional normal. As an adult, you find yourself attracted to someone who is also hot and cold, who gives just enough to keep you hooked but never enough to feel safe. That unpredictability feels like love because it was love to your younger self. Or maybe your mother was hypercritical. Nothing you did was ever quite right. As an adult, you find yourself with a partner who always points out your flaws, who withholds praise, who makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You hate it, but you stay. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is trying to rewrite the story. Maybe this time I'll be good enough to earn love. Hermstring explains that this is not a conscious choice. This is the law of energetic imprinting. What isn't healed gets repeated. He writes, "Your subconscious doesn't care about your happiness. It cares about resolution. That's why you keep returning to the scene of the original pain, hoping this time it will love you back." This creates a dangerous illusion. You think if you just try harder, look better, say the right thing, you'll finally win the love you've been chasing. But it's not the person who needs to change. It's the pattern that needs to be exposed. One powerful exercise Hermstring suggests is to sit in silence and ask yourself, whose love did I need the most growing up, and what did I have to become to get it? Then trace that role into your adult relationships. Are you still trying to be good enough? Are you still working for love? Many people realize in this moment of reflection that their entire love life has been a project of emotional redemption. They weren't falling in love, they were falling into a role, and love became labor, not rest. This is why so many people confuse love with effort. If it doesn't feel hard, they don't trust it. If someone accepts them easily, they think, what's the catch? If someone is available, they feel repelled. It's not that they don't want love, it's that their body doesn't recognize safe love as real. Hermstring calls this the miswired compass of deservingness. When you've grown up believing love is conditional, you start believing you must suffer for it. And so partners who hurt you become more believable than those who hold you. The danger is you never win. You just bleed slower. So how do you begin to heal? First, you stop blaming yourself for the attraction. You are not broken. You are repeating. And once you name the wound, you start to separate love from the past. Second, you become aware of your emotional typecasting. Are you always the fixer, the peacemaker, the performer, the pleaser? These roles didn't start in your adult relationships. They started when you were young and needed to adapt to survive emotionally. But survival modes are not love languages. They are defense mechanisms. Hermstring is clear. You don't need to be chosen by the person who triggers your abandonment. You need to choose yourself enough to stop calling it love. Third, you begin to grieve. Not the person, the fantasy. The fantasy that they would be the one to finally validate you. You let go of the illusion that if you just tried harder, they'd become who you needed. You mourn the emotional contract you never signed, but kept trying to fulfill. And then only then you start rewriting what love feels like. It will feel foreign at first, calm will feel boring, stability will feel suspicious, presence will feel invasive. But that's not because they're wrong for you, it's because your body is detoxing from what it once called love. Healing is not about finding someone new, it's about becoming someone new, someone who no longer sees chaos as proof of passion. Hermstring ends this chapter with a striking reminder. Until you reparent the part of you that needed to work for love, you'll keep hiring lovers to do a job only you can complete. This is your liberation, not just from the wrong people, but from the old pain that hired them. It's a paradox that haunts millions silently. Why do people cling to what hurts them, even when something better is available? Why do they walk away from peace but stay in chaos? Owen Hermstring offers a confronting but liberating answer in The Law Behind the Laws. Your nervous system doesn't chase happiness, and it chases familiarity. At the heart of this idea is the emotional law of energetic memory. Hermstring explains that the body stores emotional blueprints not just in thought but in sensation. If you spent years feeling overlooked, tense, or unworthy, your body learns to equate those states with home. So when peace finally arrives, a healthy relationship, an honest conversation, a quiet evening without drama, it doesn't feel safe. It feels alien, and what's unfamiliar feels dangerous, even if it's better for you. This is why, as Hermstring writes, you may be addicted to the storm because you were born into it. Many people are not avoiding love. They are avoiding the discomfort of peace. Peace requires surrender. Surrender requires trust, and trust requires safety. If you never had safety modeled for you, peace won't feel trustworthy. It will feel like a trick. Let's make this concrete. Imagine a woman who spent her childhood with emotionally unavailable parents. She learned to walk on eggshells, constantly scanning for signs of rejection. As an adult, she meets a kind, emotionally open partner. He communicates clearly. He listens. He doesn't disappear. But instead of feeling secure, she feels anxious. She doubts him. She pulls away. Not because he's wrong, but because her body doesn't recognize his consistency as real. On the other hand, when she meets someone unpredictable, who ghosts for a few days, who gives mixed signals, who praises her one day and withdraws the next, her nervous system lights up, not with happiness, but with recognition. This feels like something she knows. This feels like home. And that's the trap. Hermstring calls this the law of energetic repetition. You are not loyal to people, he writes. You are loyal to patterns, and you will abandon yourself to stay consistent with them. This is why change is so difficult. It's not just mental, it's biological. You're not just making new choices, you're overriding old chemistry. You're detoxing from the hormonal cocktail of stress, adrenaline, and tension your body learned to call love. And detox hurts. Peace feels boring, kindness feels suspicious, healthy love feels distant. So you sabotage, you pick fights, you pull away, you chase someone else. You do anything to get back to the emotional climate your body is calibrated to, even if it's destroying you. Hermstring is direct. Healing is not just saying no to pain, it's saying yes to peace before it feels natural. The real enemy of growth, then, is not pain. It's the identity built around pain. If you've always been the fixer, the savior, the martyr, the survivor, then peace threatens that identity. Who are you if you're not always trying to earn love? What do you do with your time if you're not constantly proving your worth? That identity doesn't vanish easily. It will scream as you let it go. It will create crises just to keep itself alive. That's why, right when things start getting better, people panic. Right when the relationship feels stable, they pick a fight. Right when the job feels secure, they start slacking. It's not self-sabotage, it's self-preservation for the old self. So how do you step out of this loop? Hermstring offers a practice called peace rehearsal. Each day you sit quietly and imagine what peace would feel like if it were safe. Not exciting, not chaotic, just safe. You breathe into that possibility. You let your body get used to the calm. It's not about chasing a partner, it's about building a nervous system that doesn't panic in their presence. He writes, you don't manifest peace, you practice holding it until your body stops rejecting it. This is the deep work, learning to tolerate goodness. Not just crave it, but receive it. Not just visualize it, but stay when it arrives. You'll notice resistance. Your mind will say, this can't last. Your body will say, it's too quiet. Something must be wrong. That's the residue of the storm. That's the scar tissue talking. Your job isn't to silence it. Your job is to stay. Stay in the peace. Stay in the quiet. Stay in the relationship. Stay in the new self. Let the old self tremble. But don't let it drive, because on the other side of that tremble is freedom. Hermstring reminds us, you won't feel safe in peace until you prove to your body that it can survive calm. That's why we must reparent ourselves with compassion. Talk to your inner child the way you wish your parents had. Tell yourself it's safe now. Show yourself that love doesn't have to hurt, because peace is not the absence of problems. It's the absence of self-betrayal. And the moment you stop confusing pain with purpose, you begin to write a new story, one where love is not earned but embraced. When someone says, that's just my type, they often speak with pride or frustration. But Owen Hermstring flips this entire concept on its head. In The Law Behind the Laws, he makes a piercing statement. Your type is rarely about compatibility. It's a mirror of your wound. That hits hard because it's true. The people we're drawn to most intensely often reflect not our healing but our history. We fall for the unavailable because we were once emotionally starved. We're captivated by intensity because it resembles instability. We chase charm because we once had to win approval just to feel seen. In this sense, our type isn't destiny. It's a coded emotional script, a pattern written in childhood that keeps getting recast with different actors. Until we consciously rewrite the script, We keep attracting the same plot, with the same pain. Let's say you're constantly drawn to people who are emotionally distant. You tell yourself, I like independent people, I don't like clinginess. But what you're actually doing is chasing someone whose behavior activates your attachment wound. You're replaying the moment from childhood when you felt invisible, hoping that this time you'll be chosen. Hermstring calls this the law of energetic replication. He writes, the pain that shaped you will keep choosing your lovers until you choose to stop performing for it. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. Until we become conscious of the emotional mechanics underneath our attractions, we're not falling in love. We're falling into loops, and those loops feel like chemistry. That's the tricky part. When someone says, I felt an instant connection, it's worth asking, did your soul recognize them, or did your nervous system recognize the danger? Familiar pain masquerades as destiny. That's why the people who trigger your insecurities can feel irresistible. They don't feel unsafe whilst they feel electric. But that electricity is not peace. It's your body's warning system getting excited that the cycle is back. The adrenaline rush, the chase, the emotional whiplash. They feel like love because that's how you first learned what love was. So if your type is based on trauma, how do you change it? Hermstring proposes the concept of conscious attraction. It begins not by avoiding certain people, but by questioning the feeling that pulls you in. He writes, before you follow your desire, ask, who in my past does this person remind me of, and what do I still want from them? That question alone can change your life. Maybe you're not trying to fall in love. Maybe you're trying to win a father's attention, repair a mother's coldness, or prove to an old bully that you were always worthy. But the person in front of you is not them. They can't give you what you never received back then. That healing doesn't come from recreating the wound. It comes from walking away from it. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because it means the people who feel most familiar might not be good for you. It means real love might feel awkward at first, even boring. Because safety doesn't create adrenaline, stability doesn't create butterflies, but it does create a foundation. And Hermstring says it best, if you want to break the pattern, you have to be willing to disappoint your old self. Your old self wants the spark, the chase, the validation. But your healed self craves the quiet kind of love, the one that doesn't need to be earned, the one that stays, the one that sees you even when you're not performing. To reach that kind of love, you need to shift what your body believes love feels like. That's not a decision, it's a retraining. It means sitting in the discomfort of being seen without earning it. It means letting someone be kind to you, even when it doesn't feel deserved. It means choosing the person who feels calm, even if they don't immediately excite your old programming. Hermstring suggests a powerful daily reflection. Write down what your type usually is, then write down the emotional wound it satisfies. Finally, write the opposite. Not in personality traits, but in emotional experience. For example, type, emotionally distant, charming, unpredictable wound it reflects. Always had to fight for my parents' attention. What I actually need, emotional presence, predictability, genuine affection. This clarity helps you disarm the illusion. You start to notice the red flags earlier. You stop calling anxiety love. You stop chasing what drains you. Because here's the truth. Your real type is someone who helps you feel safe in your own skin. Someone who doesn't make you work for their love. Someone whose presence quiets your nervous system, not ignites it into survival mode. But that kind of love only becomes attractive when you heal the part of you that thought love had to hurt. Hermstring puts it beautifully. You'll know you're healing when peace becomes magnetic. That's your signal. When the chaos stops pulling you in. When the ones who stay, without conditions, start to feel like home. That's not a rejection of love. That's the beginning of it. So remember this, you're not broken for having a type. You're just rehearsing a script someone else handed you. But you have the pen now, and you can choose to write something new. A story where love is not pain, but freedom. We often believe our gut feelings are guiding us toward the truth. My intuition tells me this is right. I just knew something was off. I felt a deep connection right away. These statements sound empowering. They make us feel in control. But Owen Hermstring urges us to pause and examine who exactly is speaking. Is it intuition or is it unhealed pain using the voice of intuition? In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring describes what he calls the echo of old hurt, an inner voice that disguises itself as instinct, but actually stems from unresolved trauma. It's not your intuition that tells you to push someone away because they got too close. It's the echo of a past abandonment. It's not your intuition that tells you to chase the emotionally unavailable. It's the echo of a parent who withheld love. This echo is so convincing because it operates beneath conscious thought. Hermstring writes, "Wounds wear disguises, some wear charm, others wear instinct. And that's the danger. Pain doesn't show up waving red flags. It shows up disguised as a compass. Imagine this. You meet someone, and from the first interaction, there's electricity. You feel drawn in, inexplicably connected. Your body is on alert, heart racing, thoughts obsessively returning to that person. You tell yourself this is fate, but if you trace the feeling deeper, you might find it mirrors an earlier experience, the emotional unavailability of someone you loved who never truly saw you. Your body is not sensing love, it's sensing familiarity. Hermstring warns, the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves with confidence. When unhealed pain drives your choices, you may feel certain, but that certainty isn't clarity, it's emotional memory. You're not predicting the future, you're reliving the past. True intuition, on the other hand, speaks softly. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it doesn't spike your nervous system into overdrive. It's a calm inner knowing that emerges from a place of safety and self-trust. But most people never reach that clarity because their internal signals are scrambled by unresolved emotions. The alarm bells they trust are rigged by old explosions. Here's how the illusion of control shows up. Avoidance as intuition. You meet someone kind, stable, emotionally open, and you feel uneasy. Something feels off, you say. But the truth is, you're not used to safety. Your nervous system is coded to interpret calm as danger because it's unfamiliar. You reject what's good for you under the illusion that it's not a good match. Chasing chaos. You feel most alive in unpredictable relationships. You interpret the roller coaster as passion. But Hermstring says, if the relationship feels like a storm, you're not in love, you're in survival mode. That intensity is your body reliving past turmoil, trying to finally win a battle it lost years ago. Controlling everything. When you haven't healed, control feels like safety. You micromanage relationships, obsess over texts, analyze tone, guard your vulnerability, all while calling it high standards. But Hermstring is clear. Control is not a virtue, it's a trauma strategy. So how do you distinguish true intuition from trauma in disguise? Hermstring offers a three-part reflection. What does this feeling remind you of? If your intuition feels familiar, ask where else you felt it. Trace the emotion, not the story. Do you feel desperate to prove your worth? Are you terrified of being abandoned again? That's not intuition, that's memory. What does your body say after the high wears off? After the initial flood of emotion fades, how do you feel? Intuition brings peace. Trauma brings confusion. If you feel anxious, unsettled, or obsessive, you're likely operating from pain. Would this decision feel right if you weren't afraid? Remove fear from the equation. Would you still chase this person? Would you still run from that opportunity? Often, what we call gut instinct is actually fear wrapped in logic. Hermstring calls this energetic clarity, the ability to discern between guidance and ghost. He writes, your soul whispers, your wound shouts. Learn to recognize the volume. This requires brutal honesty. It requires slowing down. It requires confronting the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. The part that needed love and didn't get it. The part that begged to be seen. The part that still believes chaos is proof you're alive. It also requires compassion. You're not broken for being fooled by your own feelings. You were just never taught how to read them. Nobody taught you how to listen beneath the noise. Nobody taught you that certainty can be seductive, but truth is often quiet. You can train your intuition, but not by force, not by demanding clarity. You train it by healing your nervous system, by noticing your patterns, by choosing discomfort over dysfunction, peace over passion, reality over repetition. Here's the paradox. To truly trust yourself, you first have to question yourself. You have to hold up your desires and ask, who taught me to want this? You have to take your fears and say, whose voice is this really? And when you do, something powerful happens. You begin to hear a different voice, not frantic, not anxious, but clear, grounded, still. That's not your pain. That's your real self. And that self doesn't lead you into cycles. It leads you out. Because ultimately, Hermstring's message is this: you are not lost. You're just listening to the wrong guide. The way out is not louder signals. It's deeper silence. And that silence is where truth begins. There's a quiet tragedy that plays out in countless lives. People keep falling in love with the same person, just in different bodies. The names change, the cities change, the circumstances evolve, but the emotional pattern remains painfully familiar. Why do I always end up here, they ask. Owen Hermstring doesn't shy away from this question. In The Law Behind the Laws, he proposes a difficult but liberating truth. You're not choosing love. Your old wound is choosing familiarity. Hermstring calls this phenomenon energetic echoing. It's the unconscious magnetic pull toward people who mirror the dynamics of your deepest, earliest emotional injuries. You think it's fate. You think it's chemistry. But it's memory, emotional memory, playing out the same unresolved story in the hope of a different ending. This is why we're drawn to the emotionally distant, to the unpredictable, to the ones who never quite see us. Not because we're masochistic, but because somewhere deep inside our unhealed child is still trying to earn the love they never got. We chase what hurt us, not because it feels good, but because it feels known. Hermstring puts it plainly. The heart doesn't seek love. It seeks the familiar. That's why it confuses what's familiar with what's safe. It starts in childhood. A parent ignores your emotional needs. A caregiver withholds affection unless you perform. A sibling makes you feel invisible. Over time, these emotional patterns become your blueprint. Your nervous system calibrates to chaos. You learn that love is something to be earned, not something you inherently deserve. Then, as an adult, you gravitate toward relationships that match that blueprint, even when it hurts. Take Sarah, for example. She was raised by a father who only acknowledged her when she achieved something impressive. Love was conditional. So now in her 30s, she's attracted to men who seem indifferent, and she throws herself into proving her worth, hoping they'll finally validate her. She says she wants emotional intimacy, but what she chases is emotional distance, because that's what love always felt like. Or Daniel, whose mother constantly criticized him. Now he's drawn to partners who tear him down. Not because he enjoys it, but because somewhere deep inside he believes that if he can finally get it right, they'll stop criticizing and start loving him. He's still chasing approval from someone who isn't even in the room anymore. Hermstring writes, until you become conscious of your pattern, you will call your trauma destiny and mistake your triggers for attraction. This is the cruel magic of the wound. It doesn't scream. It seduces. It disguises itself as destiny. It says this time will be different. It says that they're not like the others, but the same ending always waits at the bottom of the spiral. Pain, confusion, heartbreak. Again, so how do you break the spell? First, Hermstring encourages radical pattern recognition. Your history is your teacher, he writes. Study your emotional choices like sacred texts. Who do you chase? Who do you reject? What behaviors feel exciting and which feel boring? The answers reveal what your body has coded as love, even if your mind knows better. Second, you must confront the truth that healing doesn't feel like fireworks. The emotionally available person might feel dull at first. The respectful partner might not cause the familiar nervous system spike. That's because healing feels unfamiliar. Your body has no reference point for safety. So it mistakes it for lack of passion. But Hermstring warns, if your heart races, your stomach drops, and your thoughts spiral after a first date, that's not love. That's activation. And activation is not connection. Real connection feels calm. It feels stable. It doesn't ignite your wounds. It soothes them. But that kind of love requires emotional maturity to recognize you can't receive what you haven't made space for. You can't accept what your wound is still rejecting as boring or unworthy. Third, you must grieve. Grieve the years you lost chasing ghosts. Grieve the fantasy that if you just loved someone broken enough, you could finally fix your childhood. Grieve the version of you that thought love had to hurt to mean something. And then release it. Because here's what Hermstring makes beautifully clear. Your wound is not your identity. You can outgrow it, but only if you stop feeding it. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about liberating yourself. It's about realizing that you're not defective. You're patterned, and patterns can be broken, but only with awareness and only with courage. Love isn't supposed to be a battleground. It's not supposed to be earned. You don't have to prove your worth, beg to be seen, or walk on emotional eggshells. That's not love. That's reenactment. And when you finally see the pattern, when you finally choose discomfort over dysfunction, when you finally say no to what your wound calls home, that's when something shifts, not just outside, but inside. You become the safe place you've always sought in others. You stop searching for someone to heal you and realize you've always had the power to heal yourself. Because love, true love, the kind Hermstring speaks of, doesn't trigger your wounds. It holds space for your healing. And that's the love you were born to receive. When someone says, "That's just my type," it often sounds harmless, even romantic. But Owen Hermstring invites us to dig deeper. In The Law Behind the Laws, he dismantles the idea of type and exposes it for what it often is, a trauma echo disguised as preference. You think you're choosing a certain kind of person because of taste or compatibility. In reality, your subconscious is selecting what feels familiar, not necessarily what feels safe. That's why, as Hermstring puts it, your type is often the person who can hurt you in the exact way you've been hurt before. This is a powerful and unsettling realization. It means your attraction isn't random, it's scripted. Scripted by early experiences, emotional dynamics, and unresolved wounds. You're not dating bad people, you're dating patterns. Let's break that down. In your formative years, your nervous system absorbed emotional patterns like a sponge. If love came with criticism, rejection, or abandonment, then those sensations became intertwined with affection. As an adult, your body doesn't search for joy, it searches for what it knows. And what it knows is the chaos of inconsistent love. Hermstring explains that what we call chemistry is often the body recognizing an old emotional landscape. It says, "This feels like home." But not because it's healthy, because it's what you've survived before. This is why people can feel deeply drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. It's not a mystery, it's muscle memory. It's the nervous system whispering, "I know how to dance this dance. I've done it before." And this illusion is especially deceptive because type feels personal. It feels like a core part of your identity. You might say, "I've always liked confident men," or "I just fall for women who keep me guessing." But beneath those preferences is often a story, a wound that has never been acknowledged. Hermstring gives a striking example in the book. A woman named Erin keeps dating controlling men. She says she's attracted to alpha energy, but when guided through deep reflection, she realizes her father was overbearing and dismissive. As a child, she learned to seek approval through compliance. Now, as an adult, she associates domination with protection. What she called type was actually a survival strategy. This is the heart of Hermstring's argument. Your attraction is an emotional algorithm, and you can rewrite it. The first step is awareness. Begin to track your emotional patterns, not just your romantic ones. Who triggers urgency in you? Who makes you feel small? Who causes you to chase? Your type lives in those responses. Ask yourself, is this person truly kind or just familiar in their distance? Do I feel seen, or am I chasing their attention like a reward? Is this love, or is it reenactment? Hermstring writes, "Falling for someone who mirrors your unhealed pain isn't love. It's loyalty to your past." That's a confronting thought, but it's also a liberating one, because once you see the pattern, you can break it. You're no longer doomed to repeat the same heartbreak in different clothing. But here's the twist. Healing your attraction blueprint doesn't mean forcing yourself to like someone who bores you. It means giving your nervous system time to adjust to calm as a new baseline. At first, someone who is emotionally available might seem dull. But that's not because they're lacking something. It's because they're not triggering your old trauma circuitry. Hermstring puts it like this: boredom is sometimes peace in disguise. You just don't recognize it yet. Retraining your attraction system requires slowing down, noticing your impulses, sitting with discomfort instead of diving into intensity. It means learning to choose, not just to react. And most importantly, it means creating new emotional experiences that your body can reference. Safe relationships, kind interactions, affection without conditions. These become the new blueprint. These become the new type. There's nothing wrong with being drawn to a certain energy. But ask yourself, is this attraction rooted in expansion or in fear? Does this person ignite your potential or your old wounds? Are you chasing a person or chasing resolution for something that happened decades ago? Hermstring's core message is that your type isn't fixed, it's fluid. And as you heal, what excites you will evolve. What once pulled you in like gravity will start to repel you. You'll look back and wonder how you ever mistook instability for passion. Because when you truly reprogram your emotional algorithms, you stop seeking love that mirrors your past and start accepting love that honors your future. That's not just a better relationship, that's transformation. There's a moment in nearly every romantic film where two people lock eyes and say, "I feel like I've known you forever." That line melts hearts and fuels dreams. But Owen Hermstring urges us to pause and ask, what exactly are we recognizing in that moment? In the law behind the laws, Hermstring suggests that what we often interpret as instant connection may not be love at all. It may be emotional deja vu, and more often than not, emotional deja vu is a warning, not a sign. You meet someone new and something about their energy, voice, or vibe pulls you in. You feel at home. You feel seen. But what you're really feeling, Hermstring argues, is not recognition of them. It's recognition of a pattern your subconscious knows well. You're not seeing the person clearly. You're feeling the echo of a story you've already lived. This phenomenon is powerful because the body loves what it remembers, even if what it remembers is pain. Familiarity is mistaken for safety, and comfort is confused with connection. That's why so many people end up in relationships that mirror the emotional dynamics of their past, even if those dynamics were toxic. Hermstring writes, "We are addicted to what we survived. If we survived chaos, we crave chaos. If we survived silence, we seek it. If we survived chasing love, we don't know how to stand still for it." This explains why emotionally unavailable partners seem irresistible, or why kindness can feel off to someone used to neglect. The body whispers, "This doesn't match the template," and instinctively pulls away. Not because the person is wrong, but because the pattern is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar equals unsafe in a dysregulated nervous system. To illustrate this, Hermstring describes a man named Jordan who always fell hard for women who ignored him. He said he liked the chase, the mystery, but when he dated someone who offered him steady attention, he lost interest within weeks. Through deeper work, he uncovered that his mother was emotionally inconsistent, loving one day, distant the next. He learned to equate love with pursuit, so when love didn't require effort, it felt fake, it felt undeserved. This is what Hermstring calls emotional GPS misalignment. Your inner compass has been calibrated by repetition, not truth. So when someone feels right, it might simply be that they are echoing an unresolved pain you've normalized. And when someone feels off, they may be offering what your heart truly needs, but your body doesn't know how to receive it yet. Familiarity is not the enemy, but mistaking it for love can sabotage your growth, because if love is always just a repeat of what you know, you never get to experience what you deserve. So how do you break this loop? Hermstring says it begins with stillness, not action, not fixing, just pausing long enough to feel the truth of your patterns. Who do you chase? Who do you feel bored with? Who triggers your anxiety? Who feels exciting in a way that always ends in confusion or pain? Often, the very people who feel the most electric at the start are the ones who short-circuit your nervous system later, because they were never giving you energy. They were lighting up your trauma. Real love doesn't spike your cortisol, Hermstring writes. It calms your storm. This is a hard truth to accept because it means acknowledging that some of our most intense loves were never really about the other person. They were about reliving something unresolved, trying to rewrite a chapter through a new face. But trauma doesn't get rewritten through repetition. It gets rewritten through disruption. The next time you meet someone and feel that deep, almost eerie sense of, "I've known you before," stop and ask, is that feeling coming from soul recognition or soul repetition? Is this person truly aligned with your healing, or are they aligned with your history? It's not that all familiarity is bad. Sometimes you do meet people who feel like home because they are part of your future. But the only way to know the difference is through self-awareness, through questioning, through pattern interruption. Hermstring's advice is not to fear connection, but to investigate it. Sit with your body's reaction. Ask if this pull is rooted in peace or panic, if it's anchored in clarity or chaos, and most importantly, don't let your subconscious run the show unchecked. Until you reprogram your emotional memory, Hermstring says, you will confuse recognition with destiny. True love may not sweep you off your feet in the way chaos did. It may not feel like a hurricane or a high. It might feel like silence, like safety, like a soft exhale. And that's okay. Because emotional déjà vu may feel familiar, but healing will feel new. You've promised yourself it would be different this time. New person, new vibe, new intentions. But somewhere along the line, the relationship begins to mirror the last. The same distance, the same abandonment, the same control. And suddenly you're asking, why do I keep falling for the same type of person? Owen Hermstring gives a sobering answer in The Law Behind the Laws. You are not in love with people. You're in love with your wounds, and you keep choosing those who match them. It's not that you consciously want pain. It's that your subconscious wants familiarity. It seeks out what it recognizes. And when your earliest blueprint of love was wired with confusion, rejection, or unpredictability, that becomes your compass until it is rewritten. The people we're most drawn to are not random. They often reflect an emotional echo we haven't resolved. That echo can be positive or negative, but it is always familiar. And because our nervous system associates familiarity with safety, even toxic patterns feel right. This is why someone who dismisses your needs might feel exciting. Why a partner who overwhelms you with attention feels suffocating. Why healthy love feels boring. You are not reacting to them. You're reacting to the unconscious memories they awaken in you. In the book, Hermstring tells the story of Lena, a successful entrepreneur who kept falling for emotionally unavailable men. Each one charming, each one mysterious, each one ultimately distant. Through deep coaching work, she uncovered a pattern. Her father had been present physically but absent emotionally. Warm one moment, cold the next. Her young nervous system coded love as a game of earn and chase. She never felt safe unless she was proving her worth. So when she met someone who just gave love, no games, no drama, her body rejected it. It felt fake, she told Hermstring, like he must be hiding something. But it wasn't fake. It was just unfamiliar. Hermstring calls this trauma imprinting of preference. We assume our preferences are logical or based on chemistry, but often they are programmed by our pain. Your type may not be your preference. It may be your trauma acting like a matchmaker. And this doesn't just apply to romance, it applies to friendships, bosses, even spiritual mentors. We magnetize what mirrors us internally. That's why healing doesn't begin with changing who you date. It begins with changing who you believe you deserve. This leads to one of Hermstring's most powerful observations. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe you're worth. It's possible to want kindness and choose cruelty, to want intimacy and choose avoidance. Not because you're weak, but because you are operating from a subconscious identity shaped by old wounds. In practical terms, what does this look like? It looks like ignoring red flags because chaos feels like home. It looks like mistaking anxiety for passion. It looks like staying in relationships that drain you because being chosen, even by the wrong person, feels better than being alone. This is the emotional echo. It whispers, this is what love feels like. Not because it is, but because it's what you've known. And unless you become radically self-aware, you will keep reaching for the same frequencies, hoping for different outcomes. Hermstring offers a strategy he calls preference disruption. Instead of asking, do I like this person? Ask, why does this feel familiar? Or who does this remind me of? Shift the focus away from how intensely you feel and toward what those feelings are built on. Often we fear this process because it implies facing uncomfortable truths. We must admit that some of our most intense attractions were not love. They were reenactments, that we've romanticized emotional danger, that our chemistry is often a chemical reaction to the past, not the present. But there's hope. Because once you name the echo, you disarm it. Healing doesn't mean you stop being attracted to people. It means you start questioning why you're attracted. And that pause, however brief, can be the moment your entire pattern begins to unravel. As Hermstring puts it, the wound will choose for you until the healed version of you shows up and says, no more. Real love may not set your heart racing in panic. It may not make you obsess over texts or second-guess your worth. It may be steady, quiet, soft, and in that softness the echo finally fades. Because you are no longer falling for your pain. You are choosing from your healing. The moment you realize your relationship patterns are repeating, not just once, but across time, across people, across circumstances. It's a moment of both clarity and crisis. You may ask, is there something wrong with me? But the better question is, what in me keeps choosing this? Owen Hermstring answers without judgment in The Law Behind the Laws. You don't heal by fixing the person in front of you. You heal by addressing the one behind you. The cycle doesn't persist because of the person you're currently with. It continues because of the unhealed imprint from the past, usually rooted in childhood, magnified by experience, and cemented by repetition. Hermstring insists, you don't need closure from them. You need clarity from within. The truth is, we're often trying to resolve emotional wounds through relationships that cannot possibly heal them. That's because the source of the pain didn't begin with that partner. It began in the part of us that was neglected, invalidated, or ignored years before we even knew what love meant. The relationship is not the root, it is the trigger, the mirror. And until we treat the wound instead of chasing the reflection, we remain stuck, hoping love will rescue us when it's really asking us to rescue ourselves. In the book, Hermstring tells the story of Marcus, a man who was always the fixer in his relationships. He dated partners who were emotionally volatile, financially unstable, or carrying deep trauma. On the surface, he was kind, devoted, and giving. But underneath was a compulsion to be needed, because his childhood taught him that love had to be earned, saved, or won through sacrifice. Marcus wasn't healing anyone. He was reliving his own abandonment by ensuring someone else wouldn't feel it, even if it meant neglecting himself in the process. This is what Hermstring calls the wounded healer complex. Many people live it. Few recognize it. We often believe that if we love someone hard enough, we will finally be chosen. Or if we prove we're good enough, they'll stop leaving. But the outcome is predictable. Resentment, depletion, heartbreak. Because healing cannot come through reenactment. It comes through rewiring. The mistake is assuming that a better relationship will fix the pattern, that if you find the right person, everything will align. But here's what Hermstring emphasizes. A healed pattern doesn't attract better people. It makes better choices. You become the interrupter. The one who says, this doesn't feel good even if it looks familiar. I'm not responsible for saving someone who doesn't want to change. Love shouldn't cost me my peace. This level of self-awareness isn't instant. It's earned through grief, reflection, and radical honesty. Because before you can love differently, you have to unlearn everything you mistook for love. Many of us were taught that love looks like waiting to be chosen, silencing your needs to keep the peace. Mistaking jealousy for passion, confusing emotional intensity with intimacy. Hermstring urges us to interrogate these blueprints, to ask, where did I learn this? And, is this mine to carry anymore? One of the book's most striking concepts is emotional residue. Every unhealed relationship leaves behind an imprint, like fingerprints on glass, and if you don't clean the glass, you see every future person through that smudged lens, distrusting kindness, fearing abandonment, expecting betrayal. Healing the root means cleaning the lens. Hermstring recommends this internal audit. What belief about love was formed in your childhood? Did you associate love with punishment, inconsistency, or fear? What role did you play to receive love? Were you the achiever, the caretaker, the peacemaker? How do you respond to love that feels safe? Do you lean in, or do you sabotage it? These questions are not easy, but they are essential. Because without them, your relationships become reruns of the same emotional script, different actors, same ending. And here's the hard truth. Even if someone else is at fault for hurting you, you are responsible for healing the part that allowed it to continue. This is not self-blame, it is self-empowerment. Because once you take radical ownership, you stop waiting for apologies. You stop needing closure. You stop tolerating crumbs. You learn that healing doesn't begin with, I deserve better. It begins with, I will no longer abandon myself. And from that place of wholeness, the pattern breaks. You stop attracting people who exploit your kindness. You stop staying where you're only partially seen. You stop fighting to prove your worth. Because the wound no longer chooses, you do, and when you choose, you don't just break the cycle. You build something